Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video on my channel, Hairliciously. If you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe so that you guys are updated on hair loss and hair transplant content, as well as updates on current hair loss treatments in the pipeline. Now, in today's video, I wanted to share with you an interesting hair loss treatment currently undergoing clinical trials that I found to be worth sharing for those who have not heard of it yet. This drug is called TDM-105795. It's by a Chinese biopharmaceutical company called TechnoDerma Medicines Incorporation, and they focus on development of therapies of dermatitis, psoriasis, and lupus. And if you go to their website and take a look at their pipeline, they already have drugs that have entered human clinical trials for phase 1 and phase 2 as of 2023 and 2024. And if you look at the first product, it's for the alopecia treatment topical TDM. Now, this drug is classified as a thyroid receptor beta-1 agonist, and the suspected mechanism of action includes stimulating hair growth by activating dormant hair follicle stem cells and inducing the growth phase of the hair follicles. So, in a nutshell, these are synthetic analogs of thyroid hormones with tissue-specific thyroid hormone actions. And what's really interesting about TDM is that it's known to activate the Wnt, beta-catenin, and Sonic Hedgehog pathways as a consequence of the local thyroid beta-1 agonism. And from prior research, we know that these signaling pathways contribute to anagen growth and the transition of telogen follicles to the anagen phase, while also extending its duration. And what's also more interesting to note is that TechnoDerma was actually founded by ex-Pfizer employees. And for those who don't know, Pfizer is one of the world's premier biopharmaceutical companies in the world. And there actually has been prior research on thyroid hormone analogs conducted by Pfizer and Monastery Labs just years ago. And they conducted it on mice, on stump-tailed macaques, and human hair follicles that showed very promising efficacy and no side effects or systemic exposure. And with mice models, for example, it was shown that the Sonic Hedgehog activation increased by nearly 200 times and the Wnt pathway at 4 times. And also in human hair follicles, the number of anagen hair follicles had nearly doubled. But Pfizer had apparently sold and quit all derma therapeutic efforts in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis, and Monastery Lab regrettably did not manage to further agree with the substance IP holder, and also claims that their project got lost due to a lack of funding. As far as phase 1 clinical trials for TDM, it showed that it had a favorable safety profile and that it was also well tolerated. And more recently, TechnoDerma had released their phase 2 clinical trial results a couple weeks ago. And based on the information that was provided from the study, it does look like a pretty promising and interesting company that hopefully may well be a good contender against androgen alopecia and other available treatment options. So here's the data for phase 2. This proof of concept clinical trial in the androgen alopecia program included daily dosing for 4 months in a study entitled A Randomized, Double-Blind, Vehicle-Controlled Parallel Group, a multi-dose study to evaluate the efficacy and safety of TDM-105795. Male subjects with androgen alopecia. Study objectives were to evaluate preliminary efficacy, safety, and pharmacokinetics of topical TDM-105795. 13 U.S. clinical sites participated in the study under an open IND with FDA. Evaluation of efficacy was measurement of non-vellus target area hair count. It showed mean changes from baseline of around 24 hairs with the high label strength 0.02% and 20.3 hairs with the low label strength 0.0025%. Topical solution compared to 14 hairs with placebo in 1 centimeter square test areas. Randomization was 1:1:1 with 71 patients enrolled. Both label strengths of TDM were well tolerated with no material safety issues identified. Bioanalytical results showed that once daily application of TDM topical solution at either dose produced extremely low to no systemic exposure. So phase 2 was actually done in the US last April to November 2023 in several states for 16 weeks of the topical application of TDM once a day treatment. And with the 0.2% concentration, the total area hair count changed from baseline to about 24 hairs. And the lower strength topical was at 20.3 hairs, which means both concentration ranges were likely negligible. But the unusual thing about this was that the placebo was at 14 hairs per centimeter squared, which is typically not this high in a clinical study. Factoring the placebo, the net hair increase per centimeter squared was around 10 hairs, which, obviously it's not going to cure hair loss, but rather be more of a maintenance drug that could possibly prolong the anagen phase and stimulate some growth. But, one of the issues that I see here is that the sample size of just 71 subjects split across 3 groups is relatively small. So, there's going to be the likelihood that results could be explainable simply due to chance. We also don't know the average total area hair counts of each subject, as this can definitely skew the results. If a small number of individuals were hyper responders, and if this were the case, it would mean that only a small amount of subjects were actually responding favorably to the treatment. So, hopefully we're going to get more information on the details of phase 2 clinical trials, and also hope that we are going to get a much larger sample size for phase 3 to better assess the efficacy of the drug. And as far as the total area hair count, we can look at a few drugs that we know are supported by clinical data. Finasteride, for example, both the topical and oral application yields around 20 hairs per centimeter squared after 6 months of treatment, with a placebo of around 6 to 7 hairs. This means that, the net increase is around 13 hairs per centimeter squared. Pyrilutamide, for example, total area hair count for the 0.5% concentration was around 23 hairs per centimeter squared. Placebo was around 7 hairs, which is comparable to that of finasteride. And then we have minoxidil, which is roughly around 18 hairs per centimeter squared, and placebo is roughly around 5 hairs per centimeter squared. Obviously slight differences based on which study is being referenced. So, in the grand scheme of things, the total area hair count for most of these drugs seem to be pretty on par with each other. Nothing crazy as far as significant regrowth potential is concerned. And the obvious thing to note here is that TDM does work in a different mechanism of action, and with its potential of being able to show an increase of hair growth over baseline and total area hair counts from its phase 2 results, a synergistic effect of stacking on treatment will likely work the best in promoting the most hair growth potential. And it's definitely good to see, different companies looking into different mechanisms of actions to treat hair loss. And I think eventually, we're going to have enough treatments that can be used synergistically to maintain existing hair, but also to promote new hair growth to the point where, maybe a hair transplant is no longer going to be warranted. But at the same time, we just have so many, these startup companies that claim to be having all these breakthroughs when they're not significantly better off from placebo. So I personally like to remain, skeptical until we get results from phase 2 clinical trial results. I honestly won't have too much expectations from this, but I definitely will keep an eye on it for updates, and we'll let you guys know once we get more information. But that pretty much wrapped up this video for TDM. Hopefully you guys liked it. Hopefully it's been educational. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are on this drug. And until then, I will talk to you guys in my next video. Take care, guys.